Something I'm usually asked a lot about is how exactly do I go about recording some of the game footage that I put up in my videos. Usually I get the type of questions of, oh, are you using an emulator? How is that so clear? Not quite. Not an emulator. Everything that I use is the exact legit system. I don't have a video card to plug my systems in directly, but what I do have is this little thing here called the Adaptec Game Bridge. I got this quite a number of years ago. I believe around 2007. This is completely discontinued at this point. The company stopped working on these. So there's really no way of getting these unless you go get them on eBay, and that's going to cost you quite a heavy amount of money, because this is actually one of the cheapest, well, was one of the cheapest and easiest ways to record game footage. As you'll see here, it has S-Video. It's got the composite cables right here. Right over here is where you hook up a USB cable to your computer. But yeah, that's basically how I record all my game footage from my consoles. It pretty much works on anything that uses S-Video and composite cables. It doesn't do component in HD, obviously. But another thing is, it also obviously works for stuff like recording Game Boy footage with the Super Nintendo's Super Game Boy. As you can see, I've got Wario Land 2 in there. If I want to record Game Boy Advance games, then I turn to my GameCube and the Game Boy player that I've got hooked up to it. As you can see, I've got Pokemon Fire Red. For those of you that have never actually owned these things, because I know a couple of people who follow me on my Twitter account who have said they've never owned this damn thing or Super Nintendo, so you know who you are. Shame on you. The Super Game Boy will allow you to play just about any Game Boy game. As you can see here, I've got Metroid 2 in there. You can play any Game Boy game, any black cartridge Game Boy game as well. This is Legends of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. However, it will not play Game Boy Color games, because this came out quite a bit before Game Boy Color, so you won't be able to play any that are in this kind of cartridge style. As for the Game Boy player for the GameCube, you can pretty much play anything, just as long as it'll fit here. So you can make up for not being able to play on this by playing it on this. Of course, you won't be able to play, I believe, Kirby's Tilt and Tumble. Yeah, because you're going to need to basically do this in order to control the damn thing. You obviously won't be able to use the Game Boy camera because of the way the thing is going to be in there. However, you can, this is going to be tricky with one hand, plug it into your Super Game Boy. It'll work just as fine as long as you're in front of the damn thing. Okay, what I'm going to show you is exactly how the whole recording process goes. Along with the Game Bridge, it comes with a program called Intervideo Home Theater, and as you can see here, it'll let me record directly from the Game Bridge itself. Turning to the right here, as you can see, I've got the Super Game Boy hooked up with the Super Nintendo. Now, all I just gotta do is hit Game Bridge. As you can see here, there's a little video you've got closed caption, recorded content, take snapshot, and settings. Closed caption doesn't mean squat. Recorded content shows you all the videos that you've recorded. Take snapshot is rather simple. It takes a screenshot of what's here. Now what we're going to do is going to zoom in on this. As you can see, I've got the screen enlarged. Now I'll turn the Super Nintendo on. As you can see, the Super Game Boy is starting up. Because I have headphones set up, you're obviously not going to be hearing the audio, so please forgive me. I can open up the Super Game Boy here. I can change the color palettes to whatever I want. Let's go with the standard grayscale. This is a basic Game Boy game. And can also change the background to whatever I like with the Super Game Boy. Like I said, I'm pretty sure most of you know about this, but there are actually a couple of people who don't know about this. Again, not naming names. But yeah, let's show you. As you can see here, this is Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Let's start with Metal Man. It's going to be hard playing one-handed, so as you can see, I've got the basic controls here. Alright, pause that. And of course, not only can I record the Game Boy games like I said, I can get pretty much anything that works on a console that can be used on this thing here. And yes, that is my legit copy of Earthbound. As you can see. So, pretty much any console can be used. Like I said, it's powered by composite S-Video. So, as long as you have something like that, it'll work. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier is that this thing is what's keeping me from upgrading my OS. I found out because this was discontinued, it was discontinued before Windows Vista came out. So XP is the highest that this will support. Windows 7, not supported at all. There are no, what's the word I'm looking for? There are no patches or anything like that to get this to work on later systems. There's probably one for Vista, but it doesn't work very well. I tried it once and it just did not want to work at all. But yeah, that's basically the Game Bridge in a nutshell and how I record my stuff. So you can see the Super Game Boy is how I record my Game Boy stuff. If I want to use the Super Game Boy layouts, Game Boy Player is what I use basically to just play any Game Boy game that I got. So yeah, hopefully this informed you guys just a little bit so you understand how I go about doing this, and it's not emulators like you think it is. Thanks for watching. Wario Land 2. This is the Game Boy Color Enhanced version. And of course it doesn't work. Wonderful. Let's try that again. And it doesn't want to work.